when we last left this is that 230 block that I got in and been working on. When we last left this, I had honed it out to around 10 thousandths over, 8 or 10 thousandths. Trying to get this rust spot out of this number 2 cylinder. I was living this fantasy that maybe it'd clean up at 10, but I knew it wouldn't. So now I've taken it out to 20. We're still not there. I'm hoping, I think the next overbore size is 35 in the 440 source stroker kits. So now I think it's going to clean up at 35. Now I also have a little spot right here high that is actually a little worse, but I'm not really concerned so much about that. That's what's got me bothered. And the number 7 hole has got a spot up here also. But so now I'm going to continue to hone, and I think that's going to clean up. I think everything's going to be fine. But when you get to this point, after you get the ring groove out and the cylinders are all clean and straight, you start thinking about sonic checking. You know you're going to have to go further than you wanted to, and you think about sonic checking. Well, is sonic checking important? In the old days, I don't really think so. I mean, what were people doing back then? You were putting on a Holly and an Edelbrock and some headers and an Excel dual point and bigger Cameron lifters and everything's going to, you were making what, 400 and something horsepower. Not a big deal. But 50 years has gone by, and now we've got these fabulous trick flow heads. We've got these stroker kits that are cheap with real good parts, and the horsepower levels are somewhat unbelievable. That last engine that Just Mopar Joe did, one of the guys in the comments said, it's a 400 block, and he stroked it to 512 for a bracket motor type application. And one of the guys in the comments said, I predict you make 510 horsepower more than a stock 400. That seems impossible, doesn't it? But he made that and more. It made a hair over 750 horsepower. Well, yes, I think sonic checking is now very important. But the thing about these 230 blocks, and when you buy them, you really don't know how it's going to sonic check. You paid a lot of money for it. You paid a lot of freight to get it to you, but you still don't know what you have. So, but the power output of these new engines is just phenomenal. And so it does become important, and you paid a lot for it, and so you need to know where you're at. So let's set up and do a sonic check and see where we're at. Every now and then, before you sonic check something, you should test it for accuracy, and then there's the calibration mode you can do if it gets out of calibration. I've never really had to calibrate that one. When I first got it, I had a block of some type here that had a machined tab sticking off of it somewhere. And I measured that with a micrometer, and it said 250 thousandths. So I thought, okay. So I put the machine on there, and it said 249. So I was very happy. On this block, I can't find anything machined. In other words, this transducer, I think they call it, needs to, I don't know if it'll read if you properly, if you don't have one side machined, you know, for it to sit on. This was cast, so I took a disc grinder, 4.5-inch flap wheel, and smoothed this side off. So hopefully that'll give us something to test with. And I've got this at 507. So let's see what we got. For 7 thousandths off, that's your thing over there that tells you when you've got a good grip on it. See how it's just got a 1 there now? So it is between 7 and 10 thousandths off, but I think we'll go with it anyway. I'm not happy with the way I ground that with the flap wheel. I don't know if I've just got it right. I think what I really need is a piece of cast iron, 1/4 inch thick or 1/2 inch thick, where I can just machine it on both sides and use that for a reference to set the ultrasonic with. Okay, let's sonic test. Spoiler alert, it started raining, and that makes too much noise to do video. So while it was raining, it's been raining here every day actually, I went ahead and did the whole thing. But spoiler, it's turned out great. Normally you would do this on an engine stand, but I guess I got tired of honing and just looking for something else to do. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to do here. We're going to test 2 spots every 90 degrees in each cylinder. So that'll be 8 per cylinder, 64 total. And we have to know where we want to test. You can't test up at the deck because there's no water jacket there. That's just the solid metal of the deck. So you come down a little bit, but on a big block Mopar, you've got this lug here, and you're just going to get a reading of that lug because that's solid. So you're going to have to come down a little further and get into the water jacket, you know, because that's what you're really wanting to know is, you know, how thick the cylinder walls are in the water jackets. So, and then on the bottom, the cylinder hangs out quite a bit out of the bottom of the block. So if you went out here on the very end of the cylinder, that's just solid metal. That doesn't tell you anything. So you have to come up quite a bit and get up to where you've got cylinder wall there and take your measurement there. Now on this side, it doesn't come up as high. It's about, that hangs out about that far. So you can go a little deeper there. Of course, this is the thrust side, is the right-hand side of each bank, which would be this side of the passenger side and the intake side of the driver's side. So it's the right hands, the ones that way. That's the one, that's the thrust, major thrust. That's what you worry about the most. The sides aren't nearly as important. They don't have the load on them that the thrust sides do, and this would be the minor thrust. Not as important on the left side. What kind of numbers do you want? Well, it depends on what you're doing with the block. if you're rebuilding this block for your grandmother to go to Kroger's, I don't think it matters. I've never seen a block that wouldn't make it to Kroger's. So save the 50 or $100, whatever your machine shop charges, and don't bother. It's going to be fine. But today we're building high-performance engines that make a lot of power, a lot more cylinder pressure than a stock engine does. And so sonic checking does matter, because you want your block to live. A buddy of mine blew up his 512 and he didn't sonic check it, and it was a bad day. It eventually gave it up. Would it have helped if we had sonic checked it? Well, no way of knowing now, but don't think it would have hurt. I'm not good at doing autopsies when an engine blows up. I can't tell if the cylinder let go first, or if the mains were cracked first, or if a rod broke. I'm not good at doing those autopsies. I wish I was, but I'm just not. All I can tell you is the man's stuff blew up. But so let's do our little check here and get an idea how to use this thing. This thing has a radius on it to match the cylinder, and this size. This is a 500 thousandths radius, so it'll do any cylinders, car cylinders. You have to put some gooey. It's not really gooey, it's just a gel on the transducer, I believe they call it. And then we get our reading. .242. Okay, when you see this bar go over, that means it's got a lock on the thickness. When I first stick it on there, you'll see it like it with a 1 on there or whatever, just one bar. Okay. 231. So that's great. You don't mind those numbers. Some people, when you talk to people, everybody's going to give you different numbers on what's good and what's bad or whatever. So who's to say who's right or wrong about any of these things? Most people are going to say, I hate to see anything less than 120 on the anywhere, but you will see that, and you may cry a little bit. But if it's in the middle here where there's no thrust, it's probably going to be fine, but you wouldn't want that out here on the major thrust or anything like that. Now, some people, you'll say that I bought a block and it didn't sonic check and it's junk. Well, that's not true. You just have to use it on a lower horsepower application, and you can't do what you want to with it as originally intended. I don't know what. Let's look at what this thing turned out at. Might as well turn this off. Okay. Because you may not get back to this block for 5 or 10 years, I write what it is I was working on. A 230 block. It's 15 over at the time of the measuring. And since I'd already done the mains the other day in that video, we knew where the mains were, so I just wrote that down there so I don't forget. And that's the casting date. So here's the map. That's the way the engine sits. This is your major thrust. This side of the driver's side bank, this side of the passenger side bank. So these numbers are outstanding. Yes, there's a couple of weak ones. 133. The top number is the top of the cylinder. The bottom one is the bottom of the cylinder. I think this might be the worst, 133. Yeah. But mainly this is more or less outstanding. You're over a 1/4 inch thick. That one's a hair under a quarter. A hair under a quarter. So I'm very proud. That must be the weakest one at 206. I'm totally happy. Everything's going to be wonderful. I think one guy I read said he wants at least 180 on the major thrust, and one guy said 200 on the major thrust, and I think one guy said 120 on the sides, which I think yeah, that 133 is the lowest one there. So this block turned out great. I'm happy about everything. Okay, I think I've found what I want. Calibration to a known thickness. This is the operator's manual for the sonic tester. So it looked to me like we were 7 thousandths off or 10 thousandths off, whatever it was. And I don't like that. But, you know, when you're dealing with something that has a rough side, I mean, I don't know. I think I need to calibrate it. We have simple instructions here. Calibration to a known thickness. So, what I need to do, and what I'm going to do, is find me a piece of cast iron somewhere that I can machine to a known thickness, and then in some future episode we will go through this and calibrate it to where we know it's dead on.